Ancient Rome was without a doubt one of the largest and most grand empires in the history of the human race. So much so that their coins are still wildly popular today with collectors. And tonight we have ancient Roman silver denariuses that were struck over 1800 years ago during the reign of one of Rome's youngest rulers and one who would go down in history as being one of the most controversial. And this is ancient Rome we're talking about, so that's saying something. We're talking about Roman Emperor Elagabalus, aka Marcus Aurelius Antonius, but not the one that ruled under the name of Caracalla. This guy's actual name was Sextus Varius Avitius Basanius, and he was born to a prominent Arab family in what was then Emesa, or today Homs, Syria. And his town and family were major worshippers of the sun god Elagabalus. You see where he got his name? Now, this Roman emperor is famous for taking the reins at just 14 years old. And during his short-year reign, it would be quite an interesting time. Now, this coin is item number 905-10772. 905-1077-2. And all of our coins have been certified by NGC to be in very fine condition. Silver Roman denarius is struck more than 1800 years ago. The youngest one of these coins can be is 1801 years old. They were struck from 218 AD to 222 AD when, like most Roman rulers, he was overthrown and executed by his Praetorian Guard. But let's talk about his story real quick. Now, he would actually be the cousin or nephew, depending on what books you're reading, of Caracalla. His grandmother basically controlled him, much like we see some of the children in the Game of Thrones series, and pushed him towards the leadership with his mother being fully on board. His father was a member of the equestrian class and served in the Praetorian Guard himself for a short while. He showed an extreme disregard for Roman tradition, so much so that he decided to change the entire pantheon of gods. What he did was, he decided that Elagabalus, getting better with that name, the Roman sun god, would become the new head of the entire pantheon, a role that had been held by Jupiter for a very, very long time. But more so than this, he also forced members of the military, senate, and other political entities of Rome to take place in Elagabalus's specific rituals, sometimes in place of ones for the other gods, which did not go over well. Another reason this was a big deal, and many considered it an outright corruption of the Roman political system, I guess pun intended there, was the fact that his family were the high priestesses and priests of Elagabalus. He himself, Sextus Varius Avitius Basanius, was the high priest when he took power, which gives me a lot of questions considering he was 14, but we'll move right past that. Besides replacing that head, he would also marry 4 different women, one of whom was a Vestal virgin, which was a massive no-no in their society. His behavior estranged the Praetorian Guard to a ridiculous degree, so much so that they would replace him with his own selected heir. However, that was not entirely up above board, if you know what I mean. Now, he took the name of Elagabalus after his reign. He was only called that posthumously or behind his back by the Roman senators. His rise to power happened because Emperor Macrinus took power and exiled the entire extended family of Caracalla back to their estate in Emesa, Syria. He couldn't outright exile them due to their status as the sun god's priest family. Unfortunately, while this happened, Mesa, the grandmother, decided that they were going to move against him, because how dare they exile us when we are the family of Emperor Caracalla. The soldiers of the 3rd Legion in Gallica would declare Elagabalus, then not his name, as Roman emperor at the behest of the mother and grandmother. They supported this claim because under Emperor Caracalla, the 3rd Legion received crazy amounts of focus in terms of money, attention, and manpower. They had lost this under the new ruler and wanted to regain it at any costs. At the same time, they spread a rumor amongst the empire that he was actually, in fact, a child of Caracalla. His grandmother or mother, they never said which exactly, slept with Caracalla, and therefore he existed. This was done because it gave him legitimacy to his claim, and it resulted in several of the other main legions rallying to his cause. But again, he was a bit of a unique individual who was more eccentric than he was a tested military ruler, because again, he was only 14. As this rise to power continued, he would eventually consolidate his power while never actually fully accepting the Senate's confirmations, which was the practice at the time. However, he would be a trendsetter in that regard, because after his rule and that of Septimus Severus, his follow-up, it would fall apart into the age of chaos, where the vast majority of the Roman emperors wouldn't bother to wait for the Senate, because many of them were aware of the fact that the Senate was going to be the one to probably try and take them out. Now, due to all of his eccentricities and his focus being entirely that on the religion aspect, and he kind of ignored the military. So the military was already angry with him because they weren't being properly managed, and therefore they weren't taking as much land as Rome believed it should. On top of that, forcing his soldiers and the priests alongside the armies to enact his rituals instead of their own, this made them incredibly angry. When the grandmother realized this was happening, she decided he should name his cousin, Severus Alexander, the 15-year-old, to be his Caesar and heir. The only downside for Elagabalus was the fact that they liked him infinitely more than they liked him. As a result, it became a big issue, to the point where when they wanted to test how much of the loyalty that Severus Alexander had of the Praetorian Guard, they spread a rumor amongst their camp that both of them were dead. This freaks them out, because as the Praetorian Guard, it means that they in some way, shape, or form had failed. So a riot ensued, and they demanded that the commander bring the Roman emperor and his heir to the camp to prove they were alive. When they did this, the soldiers cheered for Severus non-stop and completely ignored Elagabalus. He flew into a rage and demanded that every soldier who did not salute him or cheer for him would be put to death. Naturally, they disagreed and turned on him and his mother. They were both beheaded, and he was thrown into the Tiber River, with Severus Alexander taking power shortly thereafter. And it's iconic because Severus Alexander would be the last Roman emperor to deliver a stable economy to the empire for much of the entire 3rd century. We found these coins certified with our competition for $490 in VF. Very fine condition. We are more than $290 less at just $199.95 while our limited supplies last. Coins this old and this rare do not come around that often, and when they do, they disappear fast. At more than $290 less, these ancient pieces of Roman history are not going to last long. Call in now and grab yours while you still have the chance.